You're here because you're interested in seeing and hearing evidence that space warriors may actually exist in the future, and I'm going to deliver to you on the promise of the title of this video. See, I did a Freedom of Information Act request with Air Force Space Command just recently and got a return back of unclassified information. And this unclassified information has not been heard by the general public. Now, would you let me set this up for you? We're going to be listening in this video to an audio clip of a deputy commander of United States Air Force Space Command. And in that clip, he is asked a question by someone from NASA about secret space program plans for space troopers, warriors in the future. We know that human beings, especially in the military, have been training for a long time to operate in space. We're told by current day Air Force space commanders that space is now considered, unfortunately, a war-fighting domain.
Space is a war-fighting domain, just like air, land, and sea.
And the reason why is because China, Russia, and India are posing as real threats to the freedom that you and I have in using GPS units and operating bank accounts, debit cards, things like that. All of that's satellite-based, folks. Like it or lump it, you ought to care about space because your daily lives, including the cell phones, depend on space-based technologies protected by United States Air Force Space Command.
We go so slow in everything that we do that our adversaries have had a chance to catch up, and if we're not careful, they can pass us. We cannot let that happen.
But satellites are one thing, right? What about military astronauts?
I'm an Air Force officer. DoD in general contributes to our mission in space.
We have ignition and liftoff. The Falcon 9 rocket powers the Dragon spacecraft toward the International Space Station.
You and I both know that there are classification programs that hoard a bunch of knowledge and experiments and different types of projects that happen in space as well as down here on the ground. And the reason they need to hoard that information and keep it sacred is so the adversary doesn't actually gain an advantage in the ultimate high ground in this new frontier of space.
The only thing we can't do today is go classified. Other than that, I'll give you my straightforward answer.
If you need some evidence that the United States Air Force is at least interested in deep space operations, check out this document right here from 2017 in which they detail out why deep space operations are so important in the long run for human spaceflight, venturing out beyond Earth, beyond the moon, and actually beyond the entire heliosphere. You can clearly see in this document that the Air Force is interested in looking at these topics, and I think that that is a wonderful idea. We need to start making plans for the future. Major General Shaw from Air Force Space Command, and as I mentioned earlier, he is being asked a question at a private workshop from a NASA participant. Now this is a 4-minute clip, so hang in there because I've got something else for you right after it's done. Stick around, here we go.
I frequently get asked with the new Space Force to be space troopers. And I'm asking you, what's the role for space troopers, either in the near future or far future, and in what roles?
I'm actually not sure what you're asking me. What we're going to call the people in the Space Force, or what the space cadre looks like in the future?
Combatants. So let's say immediate response is one scenario where we put people on the surface of the Earth in 2 hours someplace.
I got it. Okay, I'm with you. You know, let me answer your question with some a little bit of conjecture, and maybe it'll help the audience. So a couple thoughts. First, so people ask me, I get this asked all the time, anywhere from my mom to folks at the headquarters and everyone in between. Hey, you're going to have a Space Force? And I usually sort of partially tongue-in-cheek, so you know, make sure you quote me in context here. A Space Force is inevitable. I don't know if it's 100 years from now, or 500 years from now, or 5 months from now, but a Space Force is inevitable. If anybody disagrees with me, I'd like to have a discussion with you on that. We are going to continue to project further and further out to the lunar sphere, into the heliosphere, and beyond at some point, and that's going to take a Space Force. If we think we're going to do that all very peacefully, I think you have another thing coming, because we've never gone into a domain where it's been strictly peaceful. I don't think that's going to happen in space. So it's inevitable. This trooper idea is inevitable. That's how there is going to be human presence in space, and it's going to be projected onto planetary bodies where people live. It's going to happen. How soon? I don't know. So that's one conjecture, but the idea is that it's inevitable, right? The second idea I'd like you to think about is the challenges that we're all facing in the space domain, and how we address those challenges. What does that look like in the future? How much of our national security capabilities are globally projected, or globally starts to become even less effective a word, right? And when we talk about the broader spheres that the planet occupies, they're global or exoglobal is the word I've been using right now. So what I mean is we're projecting power using technology, but the humans themselves are kind of fighting in place where they live. They don't go expeditionary. How's that relevant to your question? I think it's just a way to think about warfighting in the future and how space might start to lead the way when we talk about autonomy, artificial intelligence, and power projection over long distances. I think we could get there. So it's something for you all to think about.
Now, with that disclosure, Major General Shaw from Air Force Space Command tells us that space warriors will exist in the future. It's inevitable. He tells us it is absolutely inevitable. Well, here's the piece of information that you need to know and see. Additionally, in this Freedom of Information Act request, I got some slides from Air Force Space Command, and here's one of them. Now, this is unclassified. You can clearly see Air Force Space Command in the corner. It says today's complex security environment. And what's the image that we see here? We see a military astronaut, a space warrior, for crying out loud, in a camouflage space suit. I'm not making this up, but you know what? Coming from the United States Air Force and looking into the future of military space technologies, maybe it's not so crazy after all. Well, if you too want to get out there into outer space as a space enthusiast, I would invite you to click on this playlist right here, which will get you the entire Joe from the Carolinas Beyond Theory deep dive research and data-informed speculation. Just click on that playlist, right? Bam! And join me in exploring and discovering. How do we know that some of these classified programs don't actually involve humans from the military being in space already? I mean, they're already telling us that they're planning for it, they're thinking about it, it's important, huh?